Hi, everyone. This is Phil Travis. I am your American government and your world religion instructor. I wanted to go through briefly um, the paper writing guidelines and some of the tips for how to write these papers perfectly and get 100 on them every time. Um, I'm going to do a number of these audio PowerPoint presentations during the term. I think it might be a way to help you guys get to know me a little better, and I think it's also a good way for us to help the learning process. So, paper writing, how to do it right. The first and most important thing, and this isn't going to be a long presentation, it'll be like 4 or 5 minutes. So, those of you who are thinking about checking out right now because you're like, this is going to be 30 minutes of follow these directions. It's not going to be that. Do this for like 3 or 4 minutes, and that's really all you're going to need to be able to get exactly how to do these papers. But the first and foremost is to follow the directions. Now, I know the directions are up on in the website, but I also know that you have to follow a link, and I think sometimes people don't read those directions. So hopefully, if you watch this, this is really all you need to know. the The paper should be 1 page at least, and it's important to remember that that 1 page is a minimum. So if you turn in 3/4 of a page, you get an automatic deduction. So you should always write at least a full page, and really, usually the best papers are a page and a half. Um, so a page at the absolute minimum, but a page and a half is probably optimal for the writing of a good essay in this case. They should be double spaced, and the font should be 12, and it should be Times New Roman. It says New Times Roman. It should be. Um, I'm not going to deduct tremendous amounts of points if your font is something else. But with that said, it is a good thing as we're all either in the workplace or moving into the workplace. Um, Things like specific fonts are actually um, a good thing to remember to follow, and the Times New Roman is probably the most commonly used, but double space it regardless. Make sure it's double spaced. Um, Always write in paragraph form. So don't turn a paper in that's one huge paragraph. That's not the way the paragraph. That's not the way the paper should be set up. Um, the paper should have a first paragraph, which is your introduction. It should have really 2 paragraphs in the body, and then a very short last paragraph that sums up the paper. And we'll talk about that in the next and last slide. Always cite when you write these papers. Always cite. What that means is if you are paraphrasing, if you're getting information from a source, um, and especially if you're directly quoting that source, you need to be able to tell us where you got that material. That it's not your own work. It's actually information borrowed from another work. So the way I want you to cite in this class, which is on those guidelines that you can find through the lessons tab, um, the way I want you to cite is just parenthetical citation. So if you make a quote or you paraphrase from a book, put the last name of the author who wrote the book and the page number in a little parentheses at the end of the sentence, um, and then have a works cited page at the end that has 1 or 2 sources listed that you used, and that would just be author, title, publisher place, and that in the year, and that would be it. And those guidelines are also up there. But as far as the exact format for how you're going to do the works cited page, I wouldn't concern a whole lot about that. I just want to make sure you're giving credit to the people in this kind of a paper. So always cite. Every semester I will get. Actually, I don't think we got one last term, but it's not uncommon that we'll get 1 or 2 students who copy and paste material from the web. Do not do that. That's truthfully that's like the worst thing you can do in terms of plagiarism. I mean, all plagiarism is bad. Plagiarism is the um, taking of somebody else's copyrighted information or ideas. So plagiarism, in terms of what we're doing here, would be effectively stealing someone's ideas. And if you write a paper and say it's your paper and you've um, copy and pasted something from the internet, that's really directly stealing somebody else's work, and must avoid that. That's a serious thing. So no plagiarism. Always cite. Whenever in doubt, make sure you cite. Write in clear, direct sentences. All right, almost done. The last slide that we have here is going to be on the 3 paragraph sections. Okay, the introduction, the body, and the conclusion, and how to write those really well. All right, so the paper's made up, and this applies to any essay that you're going to write that's between, any essay you're probably going to write in college that ranges from our short 1.5 page essay to, a 15-page essay, is really going to basically follow this format. You have an introduction, you have a body, and a conclusion. Okay, I think that at this level, I think the introduction is probably the most important part of your paper. The introduction is 1 paragraph for this level of paper. There's others that it could be longer, but for a 1.5 to 1 page paper, 1 paragraph is all you want for your introduction. The goal of the introduction is to tell the reader what your paper's about. Okay, you might, sometimes you pose a question in the introduction. You don't always have to do this, but sometimes you pose a question in the introduction to kind of set up your overall point and your overall argument, which is your thesis statement. Now, sometimes people hear overall point and overall argument or thesis statement, and they get intimidated thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to make an argument, and it's hard to make a specific argument. You don't have to try to reinvent the wheel here. A thesis statement is just a general point. So if you're writing about, in the case that I have here, I don't have to come up with, for this paper, I don't have to come up with a thesis statement that's somehow new and unique that no one's ever come up with. You'd have to do that if you're working like on your dissertation or you're writing a book. But for our purposes, we're really more interested about learning the material. And so the thesis is your overall point, but it can be one that's already been made. In the case that I have here as an example of my thesis statement, I have the media plays a key role in the development of the perceptions of the American people. So that's an overall general point, and I would state that at the end of your introductory paragraph. So you write the introduction, maybe you have a lead-in sentence that's nice, and it has a hook, it's an example, a real-world event example or something like that. You might pose a question, tell the reader what your paper is about, and then sum up your introductory paragraph with a thesis statement. It doesn't have to be new and unique. It can be really quite simple. It's just a key thought, a key statement. It could be something like, I don't think you're going to necessarily use this thesis statement in this class, but it could be something like, the Industrial Revolution has fundamentally transformed the environment of the world. Something very straightforward like that. So it doesn't have to be brand new. Just make sure you have an overall point to your paper. It's also important to remember a thesis statement should be a short, direct sentence. Policymakers were misled in their choices to invade Iraq. It doesn't matter that you believe that or I believe that. It's just an example. So direct, short sentences that go right to the point, that sum up your overall point. That's your thesis. The thesis statement is probably the most important thing in the paper. Because if you don't have a thesis statement, you're just summarizing. And we don't want just summarization. We want you to engage the topic a little bit more. The body of the paper, and I'm about ready to wind it up, but the body of the paper are the evidence paragraphs. And then for this paper, it'll be probably 2 paragraphs. What you do in the body is explain your point by providing evidence. So in the example that I have of my thesis statement, the example is that the media plays a key role in the development of the perceptions of the American people. I show that in the body by giving 2 paragraphs that show the role of the media when it came to the portrayal of the Vietnam War. And this would be the example. It would be a piece of evidence that supports that overall thesis that the media helped change perceptions of the American people, and still do. So it would be an example of a piece of evidence from the past. This is just an example of how to make this kind of an argument. And then in the conclusion, you just summarize briefly, just 1 paragraph. The case of Vietnam, reiterates that same thesis statement at the beginning. Anyway, that's about 10 minutes. So hopefully I didn't take up too much of your time. I really hope this helps you guys grasp how to write these papers. If you know how to write them, it really doesn't take very long. And so, give a good effort and follow the basic format that we have here, and you'll find that the writing of the papers won't be that difficult. I look forward to reading them. I look forward to a great semester, guys. Email me if you have any questions. All right.